Welcome to the speaker series on a shot glass of recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. You get a house, you get a car, then you start thinking that's all you are, but you don't know the truth. So let me spell it out for you. Now I got your attention, now there's a start. Now sit and listen to my favorite part. Life's been giving us some clues. The answer lies inside of
I am Lisa, the host of A Shot Glass of Recovery, and this is our speaker series. Let's sit back and get ready for some more experience, strength, and hope.
Hi, my name's Hunter. I'm an alcoholic. When I opened up my eyes this morning, I became a grateful alcoholic. And it wasn't always that way. Gratitude, humbleness, all these words that we learn around here that allow me to get out of self, to get into God, and to get into others didn't, come easy. Ouch. I got a cat here, just bit me real good. I am a blank page right now. I love to talk. I host a big book study, and I have so much what God has done for me inside me. But I guess it's good that I'm drawing a blank. So God grant me the serenity. Hmm. Yes. I love words like peace, tranquility, you know what I mean? Especially when I'm having a chaotic day and then joy just takes over and just erases everything that's going bad in my day. Just simple words that you guys gave me in the beginning. You didn't make it too hard when I got here. I was born in Los Angeles and I couldn't wait to be born, I guess. And on my birth certificate, it says born en route, Central in Washington. And to show you that God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself or do for my mother, when the car stopped, it stopped right at the corner where back in the day, like doctors that worked at General Hospital, they had a house and they had a clinic in front of in the living room, right? And a doctor came out and delivered me in the car. And so we're in a program of miracles, right? And so you could say that was basically my first miracle. And and I had a grandmother and grandfather, and we did things. In LA, we have these mountains and we have all kind of fun things to do up in the mountains. It snows and you can go to the beach, you know what I mean? And I grew up just camping, fishing, Boy Scouts, just, everything that could be supplied for me to to succeed in life, right? Didn't know nothing about the ism, didn't know nothing about feeling less than and all these other things that came up when you go into treatment, right? Abandonment issues, all this. I was just living life, right? And have a personality, met friends easy, sports came easy. And so growing up, it was kind of cool. I learned how to surf, boogie board, body surf, scuba dive. My dad and uncles were in the service, and so they they had a boat. It was in the marina, so I grew up, basically, to go to the boat every other weekend. Or when they want me to come down there and clean the boat, I was a kid, so when they do their adult things with their adult friends, going out to different places, it was rare that I got to go. But when I got to go, it was fun, being called the first mate, for my uncle and just to do things like that. I love the outdoors. Oh God, I love the outdoors. I've been everywhere you can as far as something to do with outdoor, right? Hobbies today is golf, and yes, I'm addicted to pickleball. So my mom and dad broke up because of my mother's alcoholism, right? And I had uncles that drank, and I had a grandfather that drank, right? So I grew up seeing that. They were happy drunks. There wasn't fights on that side of the family, right? There wasn't any fights. They were just happy drunks, right? I had an uncle that drank till he just passed out and he got up and he was a masoner and we have a place out in the desert that Bob Hope built out called Palm Springs. And he got in there where he was special. His specialty was building tennis courts. So he made a very good living, you know, in Palm Springs. And he would get up and he'd go and I witnessed that. My dad became a doctor, so when he was with us, he was absentee because going to college and doing all that and the internship in hospital, he was hardly there. So when he come home and go to sleep, and he have any drinking or drug problem, he would just pass out. So now I'm like 6th grade, 7th grade, and I'm joyride in the car. I can get the keys, and me and the friends would go joyride. I'd bring the car back. And to this day, I don't think he ever knew that I did that, right? So I already was being somewhat, I don't know what the heck, I don't know, deceitful, sneaky, learning how to sneak, you know what I mean? And so my mom alcoholism took off. And so some things about my mom was like, she kidnapped us and took us into San Diego. My dad couldn't find us. She fell asleep with a cigarette and the house caught on fire. Police had to pull me and my two sisters out. She drove one time down wrong way down, down the freeway, you know. And so these are the images that I had with my mom. So my dad left, and then my resentment when I got that far, I wrote down, can't stand my dad. He left me, right? And coming to find out when that's a beautiful part about the process is after doing all the writing, I found out he didn't leave me, he left my mom. She was just impossible, right? And he did all he could, you know, to make up for that financially. So I can go to him, ask him for just about anything, but he was absentee. So how I grew up was, there was a corner, there was a street, there was a light, there was knuckleheads in the neighborhood, and we would stand there, and I learned how to drink there, you know. Our wines was like just the wine, the cheap wines that you can get at the liquor store, right? White port, Thunderbird, silver satin. When we drink and talk, guess what else I learned on that street corner? Sex. I ain't had no father to teach me, right? So I learned sex on that street corner. Learned how to steal, learn how to get a girlfriend, learn how to have two girlfriends. All that crap came off the street corner, right? In the neighborhood, kids that basically didn't have fathers, and we just stood around and talked. So now comes, where I'm getting 18 and 19, so I go out and look for a job. And so I get a job, and, we have a place in LA called Skid Row. And so, you get to drive by it and this now you get to see it and you see the bums out there and you see the parks. Leimert Park was a big park that where they hung out, and you see them drunk and standing over or hanging on light pole. And that was my image of an alcoholic growing up, right? And so when I would, get too drunk, I didn't really look at it as anything else. But I just drank a little bit too much that night. Just watch out, right? Hadn't crossed the line yet. Still can get up and go to work. The example that my uncle showed me. I have two sisters. And so at 16 years old, my mom, so in the book, when you're reading about the book and you're reading about Dr. Silkworth and Carl Jung and when Roland Hazard, that's one of the characters in the book that really helped Alcoholics Anonymous through Ebby and helped out Ebby. There was a part where he said, where Roland said, is there anything I can do? He was so desperate. He says, is there anything I can do? Right. Because he worked with him for a year overseas. And as he was going to the ship to come back to America, he got drunk. And he was like, this dude really wanted to not drink anymore. And Dr. Jung says, yeah, that in some cases, very rare, if something spiritual can happen, if God can enter the picture some kind of way in your life, right? And so for my mom, who's this full-blown alcoholic, walked into church and got saved and sanctified and filled with the Holy Ghost, and never drank again. I knew she was serious. 3 months later, she quit cigarettes. Now she becomes this mom that all my friends love. Oh, God, Jesus saw people at our funeral. She became a woman of God. So the only way that I got into these rooms was through her prayers. That didn't come easy. So now just kind of, my thing. So I'm working, decent job. And so my thing was, when I was younger, this guy named Jesse came in the neighborhood and he started selling 5-finger bags of marijuana, right? For $5, five freaking dollars, right? And so that was my gateway into my drinking, because what we like to do after work, we like to play cards, bid whist or spades and dominoes. And, and we would like to drink, you know? And so I'm getting caught up into that. And there was really nothing wrong with that, right? Non-addictive marijuana, right? And drinking, right? And cards, music, just fun, No fighting, no thugging, no what my neighborhood was known for, right? Gangs were coming in. All this, somehow was on that side of the table, right? And working and doing my thing. And some of the things when I got off work, because I lived in California, just 2 miles away was the beach. Remember, I grew up around a boat and I love the ocean. There's a point you can't get there now, but there's a point you could park and watch a sunset over by LAX and the planes take off behind you. And I would have my half a pint of Jose Cuervo's, which in my mind did not make me an alcoholic, and some non-addictive marijuana and watch the sun go down. And I would do that periodically. Sometimes I'd bring a girl there. Sometimes the boys would come there and we just sit around, look at the ocean, hear the ocean sounds. And so when it came to the point in my life where family was starting to say I had problems with alcohol, you know, I couldn't see it because my picture of the alcoholic was Skid Row and I'm working. You know what I mean? And I could remember really clear, you know, I'm at the beach doing my thing and I'm looking around, I'm seeing all the beauty, I'm recognizing God's beauty in the ocean. I said, you know what? 27 years old, I've been doing this for a while. Well, it's kind of reflection, right? And I said, I'm gonna just stop. I had no idea that I suffered from alcoholism. So I attempt to stop, right? And not even thinking, didn't know about AA anything, right? 27. And what prompted me also to do that was I got a girl pregnant, right? Now remember, at this point, that just having two girlfriends wasn't enough, right? So I had five girlfriends, right? And I remember when she got pregnant, and now I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to be this admiral guy, right? This integrity. So I told the other four that I'm going to go ahead and marry this one because I got her pregnant. I remember one of them, she cried so hard. I'd love to make amends to her. And so now, not only am I trying to like say I've done enough alcohol and dry goods in my life, I said, okay, I got this little girl on the way. And you talking about finding it literally impossible to stop drinking and using. Oh my God, that's the understatement. Now at this time, my career went, I was operating a crane, loading ocean containers on a train car, right? And and I'm doing this white substance off the console of the crane, right? And and uh and I lost that job. I was a longshoreman. I lost that job. And I remember crying, begging the guy who was firing me, and I got, wow. And so now I'm starting to get on the streets. I'm starting to like, the wife kicked me out. Dad never allowed me in the house, right? He still helped me out while I was on the street, but he wouldn't let me in the house. And mom is mom. I had a couch to sleep on, right? And I started going, okay, so my sister, my middle sister, alcoholic, right? She goes into treatment. Now she burned a lot of bridges, right? And so she goes into treatment. And when she gets out, all the family's back in her corner. I said, oh, I want that too, because, a chief manipulator. So I said, okay, this is a way I can get back in. So I go into treatment, right? And you go there and you got your treatment dude that knows it all, that's impressed you, right? All the lingo. I'm sitting there and I got the meals, you know, and I'm bouncing back really fast. They give you vitamins, a medical detox, and all this food, and you're sitting there for 2 weeks. And they tell you it was a residential program downstairs. But to get into it, when you get out, they give you a number to call, and you had to call every day. I guess you had to prove that that you wanted, to go into the treatment, right? And so, but look what happened. I get out. I'm feeling good. I can lick this thing now, right? On my own, right? I got enough information. And so by this time I was certified with hazmat and OSHA certified training and with heavy equipment. And I was I could deliver. I was a lick tanker delivery, right? Any type of whatever, diesel, gas, jet, fuel, oil. It didn't even matter. And because of those credentials, I was in demand, and I could get a job easy. And so now I'm doing that. And now because I went into treatment, guess who took me back also? The wife, right? And I had this beautiful little girl. Now she's two, right? And looking just like my mother. And so life was like, wow, okay. I mean, you get that what you guys call a pink cloud, but I remember I'm not doing meetings. I went I went to a retreat, you know, and I came out and I was feeling good, hugging trees, just all this other stuff, you know what I mean? But not knowing about recovery part. I mean, they gave me a book, right? Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so now I'm just bumping along, not knowing that the disease had something for my ass. It was waiting to just put something on me, right? So I started liking the clubs. I stopped coming home right away because, you know what I mean, from work. And I started liking the clubs, right? I'm a dancer to this day. I'm a ballroom dancer competition, right? And so I'm doing that and just slowly got caught up. My daughter did this thing, right? I wish you guys could hear what she did. As their generation growing up looking at us. And they said, wow, what a generation that just wants to medicate. I mean, that's how the kids looked at us, right? The ones that didn't cross the line, didn't have any, and they just kind of evaluated what was going on, and some like they did a school report on us. They said, "Wow, what a generation that loves to medicate, take a pill for everything, just drink, all this and that." So she never got caught up in it, right, to this day, and the work she does today is pretty amazing. She's trying to be a shaman. She's almost there. Heard that I didn't know how hard it was to become one, and so I'm getting caught up. I'm getting caught up. And we had our own pandemic, right? And and it was greater than alcohol. You know what I mean? And the pandemic was crack cocaine in our neighborhood, and it just wiped my neighborhood out. Just took us way out. Wow, the things, the crime, the things that women were doing, the things that I did. I mean, just wow. On top of alcohol, right? And so now I'm in detox number 2. So this is like I started in '89, couldn't draw a sober breath. I remember like because back then you're in the meetings and they had these chips and people would get these chips and I want one of those 30-day chips. But you know what? You got to get 29 days to get a 30-day chip, right? Then I get one, I go, oh, I want a 60-day chip. Well, you got to get 9 days to get a 60-day chip, right? Simple math. And I couldn't pull it off. I remember sitting there. I remember like I like to go to the ocean and reflect and, you know, and say, oh, this would be nice, right? So I'm in the meeting going, if I could get 6 months, I'll never drink and use ever again. Like that's what my mind told me, right? Remember, I'm going on with my own reasoning. I found out later that, my reasoning wasn't good. Reasoning with Hunter's not good. You got to find it or plus it with something, God, right? I didn't know that at the time. So here comes 1989, and I go into treatment again. This is treatment number 3. This time I'm doing some residential stuff now, right? A program called Cedar House. I get there, and by this time I had a bunch of friends in AA, right? And they just love me. You guys, oh my God, you guys love me. I mean, even though I came in and out, you welcome me every time. Even when my mom wouldn't welcome me, my dad wouldn't welcome me, my ex-wife wouldn't welcome me. You guys welcome me back every time. And I felt that if it was something that went past my mind and hit my heart, that hit my heart, right? And so I'm in Cedar House, and some of you guys were coming in, visiting, and they had like an NA meeting there, right? And I'm saying, well, okay, a meeting like this in here. So I advocated, and I got some outside people to bring literature and books in, and I started an anonymous meeting in there, and and it started out just a little circle with chairs, right? Because nobody, was participating, you know, and I don't know what it's doing today, but in a year's time, it was 250 plus, right? And I never took credit for that meeting. I always gave the glory to God for that. Because when I was around my mom, everything was glory to God, right? And when I was in my drinking and she was trying to help me, and now I don't have a job and she's letting me sleep on her couch, she would pay me $20 to take her to church, right? So, but when I got the $20, right? After I sat through church. And so when I drive her back, I'm on the way back from church, think about how am I going to spend this $20, right? I got to get a pack of cigarettes. What alcohol am I going to get? What alcohol is going to really go straight to my head? But by this time, anything I put in my body, I want it like it to go to my head, right? Because it's just up there, right? not succeed in anything, not amounting to anything, right? Can't even be a good dad when you want to be, all this stuff in my head. And I needed something that's going to take me out. And this went on for a while, dividing up $20 for cigarettes and alcohol. And then I'd get a job here and there. And nothing, I didn't, like you throw something up against the wall and it sticks. Nothing stuck to me being in church, sitting there, looking around, right? Nothing stuck, right? I'm looking at them feeling the power. I don't feel the power. All I can think about is sitting there, how am I going to spend this $20? Look where alcohol took me. So one day I said a prayer to God. Please get me out of this. I don't want to drink anymore. I just don't want to drink anymore. What I found out later was God said yes on that day, but I said no to his help. Hold that thought. Okay. So now things aren't really going good at all. My dad, out of an amends, he decided to take us to Mazatlán, Mexico, and have this big presidential suite with all the kids. He's trying to make it amends now, right? He's a doctor, the business going good. And so we're at this particular resort, and it's private, where I just go to the beach and drink, and I go into the bar where they have all the Latin music and the little skimpy dresses and all that stuff, and I drink there. And the family's like going on, participating on stuff around Masalan on the bus, doing the tours, and I'm drinking on the beach. I'm drinking inside the hotel. So on the fourth day, my dad decides to have a drink with me. He says, "What do you want?" I go, "I want a beautiful." That's cognac and Grand Marnier mix, and they pour hot water in the glass first, and they pour the water out. That's called a beautiful, right? Most expensive thing at that time you can order on the bar, right? I'm gonna tag that buddy is, right? He orders under a thimble, a teaspoon of gin and flushed it with a bunch of seltzer water or whatever. And I looked like, oh, that could not do nothing from that's near beer, right? And so we're drinking, and he's just talking. He's listening to the music. He's enjoying it. He's doing his little thing, and he's talking. And he says, "Son, I see you drinking before noon, and I see you drinking way after midnight. You must be an alcoholic." Hmm. Everything melted at that moment. What I thought of that Skid Row bum was me. I finally was able to admit that I was an alcoholic. And not only was I able to admit it, I was able to admit it to my innermost self. I got off that plane. Now I wanted to go back to detox, but God was making it a little bit hard on me. He made me work for this one. So I get into treatment. My mom begged my ex-wife, well, she was still my wife who wasn't divorced yet, to take me, to treatment, So the treatment, check out the treatment. He said, "Well, you got to test dirty." I got to test dirty. So towards the end of my drinking, it wasn't, glamorous, right? You know, I remember listening to a famous actor who's still sober today, and it was such a big deal, a treat to hear him, big name. And he says he was sitting at a table and he had this mountain of cocaine, and he named some Louis Fifth, whatever kind of alcohol that probably cost $1,000 a shot. And he said he pushed himself away from the table, got up, and went into treatment. It wasn't like that for me, boys and girls. By this time, I was taking a can opener. The old fashioned one had the spike on it where you would open a can with and pop holes in it on like a pet can of skim milk. And I'd pop the bottom of a tall can of Old English, and I'd put two holes in it. And you had to hold it, and then you pop the top, and it just rushes into you. That's where I got to with my alcoholism. I needed something to go in me really fast. That's how I drink beer. They call it shotgun in our neighborhood. And so I was shotgunning beer. So I shotgunned two tall cans of Old English and whatever else was there I could take, and I went into treatment. The car did not even stop. The car did like a slow roll and the door opened. Remember, my wife didn't want to do this. And it's like I got pushed out of the car, but because I saw all those army movies, I did a dive barrel roll and stood up in front of the treatment center, right? I get in there and I go in the intake, and it was like a cloud over my eyes. It was weird. It was a full medical detox. If you was a heroin addict, they had medicine and thought this. If you drank too much, we were going to have seizures. They had all the medicine for you, and they had medicine for my sick and sorry butt. And they put you in a hospital gown, and they call you level 1. You're in phase 1, however you want to put it. You should have put a 0 on it. You're in 0. And some of the people that are on their stuff, they're just kind of zombieing up and down the halls. We're full medical, right? And so first day, there was really nothing they asked of me to do, right? So a panel came in, and H&I panel stands for hospitals and institutions, right? And they came in, and it was 2 men and a one woman. And I got permission. It was Clint, Reggie, and Carolyn, and sober to this day. It wasn't mandatory for me to go to the meeting, right? There's certain mandatory things were in place, right? But first day, you just go in a corner and walk around in a circle. Go to your room and sleep, right? Here, eat this, get some nourishment. Those were the requirements there. So I go ahead and I go in there and I sit down, and they that night, I'm sorry for this, but anyway, I said yes to God's yes. I listened with my heart. What makes a great speaker to me is when they can quiet my head and all that stuff that's going on dissipates for that moment, and I listen with my heart. I asked one of them to be my sponsor. So to my new friends, when I got out of a treatment, I started doing meetings. There's a place called 9604, and it's in the hood. And when I got there, it seemed like it's been there for 45 years when I got there. It seemed like they had some people there that had 45 years of sobriety, right? And the hall was donated to them, right? And it's still into this existence to this day. And the side story on that hall is, say hi to Mohawk. Hey, Mohawk, get off. Side story to that hall is when we had the pandemic, the COVID thing, the builders came in and remodeled the whole hall. That was just such a touching thing. This white lady came in our neighborhood, and she was at the podium speaking. I'm sitting there like, girl, do you know where you at? Right? By the time she got done, that woman could hold her own. I was like so impressed with her story, the way she delivered that message. And she said, she might as well have said my name. She said, Hunter, there's 4 things that helped me in my recovery. One is you get a sobriety date. Mine is October 6, 1991. So October 6th, I celebrated 34 years, right? And if I counting days, what you guys taught me to do, that's 12,419 days, one day at a time. And then she said, you get a sponsor, someone to take you through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. If he or she becomes your friend, oh well, but they're not there to be your friend, right? They're here to introduce you to a power much greater than yourself. But she told me that the big book does not come with batteries, are not included. It takes a higher power. You can read it all you want to read it, but batteries are not included. She says, get a home group. Today, my home group is Salem New Life in Conyers, Georgia, right? And then she said, at this time, this was so fun. She says, get a trudging buddy. Someone, it's not your sponsor, but you guys just encourage each other to go to meetings, encourage each other to be of service, right? Encourage each other to get out of self. And the number one thing, Hunter, don't get a girlfriend. So my trudging buddy, Mark, who's still sober to this day, who's just remarkable in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, got a girlfriend. And he went through it. He was in and out of pain, right? But we had trudged to so many meetings by this time. And I'm going, and he's just crying and boohooing and this and that, and just going back to her. And I'm like, oh, I want me one of those. Yeah. So I had a 13-year relationship with a woman from Alcoholics Anonymous who is still sober to this day. And we took each other through it. I understand it when they say you're not really ready for a relationship. I don't have a relationship with myself. How am I going to have a relationship with somebody else, right? Okay, so let's get sober. So back to the treatment center when Clint, Reggie, and Carolyn delivered their message. And I believe this. I I can do this. Because, after that, I joined H&I and I was a big deal in H&I, right? Well, you don't know that. I believe that they left their God behind in that hallway. That night, October 5th, still, I'm not drunk anymore, right? And I probably really did get drunk on those 2 cans of Bolinas because by this time, alcohol wasn't really working on me, right? Alcohol was medicine, right? It was like if I had the shakes, it took the shakes away, right? It just was like it helped me quote through the day. I wasn't drinking to get drunk anymore or to pass out anything. It was just medicine. And so I'm in there and I listen, and I go to my room and here comes a white light. Boom. You can believe it or not, but proof of the pudding standing here today that that white light that I thought I felt worked. So now I'm in AA. Now, prior to the AA girlfriend, I still was married, and she came to they so the place had like a let me find my time lady. Okay. They had like a psychiatrist. Okay, so they had core groups, they had now I got another cat, say hi to Tiger. And so they had all these things, relapse prevention, addiction ed, grief and loss, you had these core groups you went to. And then they had a psychiatrist. My dad came, we sat through that. That was, I want to say a bad word. I'll put an F in front of it. That was effing painful. That was it. My mom was just, it was just like a godsend in treatment. But when my wife came, somehow I couldn't hear anymore, right? Because I saw people get their families back and I wanted my family back. And she was saying, I don't want you back anymore, but I couldn't hear that for some reason, right? It was like, and hear me now I'm trying to to do everything, right? So the program was 6 months and it was American hospital at the time, but people started dropping off people with stab wounds and gunshots, so they had to change the facility to ARC, right? I mean, they had to take the hospital off, right? And it's still here to this day. And I couldn't hear what she was saying. So when I got out of treatment, now she wouldn't let me back in. So I started listening to what you guys said. Hey, okay, go to sober living. So now I had to share a room with a knucklehead, right? And slowly get a job. But in that in American Recovery Center now, they gave you this list. And on this list, it said, I want you to prioritize what you think is important in your life. So, they had family, job, housing, employment, and then somewhere buried in there, I'm sure it was bigger than what I thought it was. They had God, right? And I made that kind of small. And you started checking the boxes, what you thought was important, right? To get on with life. My main thing was to get my family back on that paper, right? So on page 99, as I'm struggling, coming up on 9 months sobriety, want to drink again, working heavily with my sponsor now. At 9 months, this was the 4th of July weekend. We love holidays. Now, it doesn't matter if my sport team wins, I'm going to drink, or if it loses, I'm going to drink, right? But on holidays, I'm really going to drink. And here comes the 4th of July, and I want to drink. And my sponsor says, what did you do? I want you to write down on a piece of paper, what did you do for the last 10 years? So I wrote it down, and it was, I love to watch fireworks. I love to take a hit of acid and drink all day. And I wrote that down. Boom, bam. We sit down, and I didn't know that we were bringing God into the picture when we sat down and discussed this. This ain't quite the fourth and fifth step, but this was something to let me know the power of God. But I didn't know it at the time. And because we sat down and we did that, and there's a word called no shit Sherlock, the obsession for me to drink and use went away. Prior to that, I like to say that, and it's my math, right? I wanted to drink and I had a 48% I had 48% that I wanted to drink so bad, but I had 52% that I wanted to stay sober. That's me sitting down my sponsor. Ooh, this one might hit you. God works for 2%. And the obsession on that day went away. I've never obsessed to drink and use ever again. So I don't know what it's going to take for you to get to that side, right? But it's here. It's freaking here. My page is 99. This is what set me free from everything. And remember, my wife was the number thing on my mind. It's at the bottom of page 99. And it says, lit no alcoholic, lit hunter, says he cannot recover unless he gets his family back. That just isn't so. I don't need people, places, and things to recover around the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. In some cases, the wife, the job, the mom, the dad, whatever else you want to put there will never come back for one reason or another, which tells me that's none of my business. Remind the prospect, remind Hunter that his recovery is not dependent upon people. And you can add people, places, and things. It is dependent upon a relationship with God. We have seen men get well whose families have not returned at all. That's me. I had the privilege of being at the AA 1995 convention in San Diego, California. And when they said, can everybody say what is the greatest thing around here that saved everybody? And they said a power much greater than themselves. I'm going to finish with this. A newspaper came out the next day after the weekend. There was a guy that worked in that parking lot for all the San Diego Charger games, any event there, any concert. He says every night after the concert, we would pick up so many alcohol bottles, so many beer cans. And the paper read, Alcoholics Anonymous work. That worker of that yard that had to clean up said it was not one alcohol can or beer or bottle in that parking lot. Thank you. Let me be your speaker.
Just a quick reminder to subscribe, like, or follow if you like the show on any of your favorite listening platforms. If you like the speakers and other content on the podcast, please show us some love by leaving a review and consider making a PayPal contribution to help keep the show going at paypal.me/a shot glass of recovery. Every dollar makes a difference, and we thank you. Our speakers come from my AA home group, AA Solution Seekers. We meet every day at 7 a.m., so pop in sometime and say hello. Until next time, thanks for joining me on A Shot Glass of Recovery.
Everything you do, the answer lies inside you.